at the forefront of politics.
Our enemy is Trump. He is the enemy. We gotta unite. If we're not a united party, we lose to Trump.
On the front lines of activism.
There's certain fights, if we don't engage, they win. This is a fundamental question of who we are.
And delivering your daily dose of comedy.
Donald Trump, when he had his physical, they had his blood pressure, and mine is higher than his. Oh. And the irony is mine is higher because of him.
From the blue wave.
We flipped. Enough seats to take control of the House. We control the House.
To 2020 and beyond. This is the Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius XM Progress, Channel 127.
And welcome to the show, brothers and sisters of the Resistance, Friday, June 28th. I'm Dean Obeidallah, hoping to be here on BFF. A lot to talk about. We're here live. Michael played some of the great stuff he did in Miami in the last hour. He really got to talk to some of the top-tier candidates, some remarkable stuff. And we're obviously going to talk about the debate. But first thing, we got to talk a little bit about Trump at the G20, just to bring people up to speed how horrible he is, in case you forgot for a couple of hours what's going on. Today, in Japan, at the G20, Donald Trump had a meeting with his 2016 campaign manager, Vladimir Putin, I guess to interview him for 2020 to see if he's on board with the campaign. And there, and I'm not kidding, a reporter asked Trump the idea, are you going to warn Putin not to meddle in the 2020 election? And Trump goes, I won't even play the audio. He goes, of course. And then he adds, jokingly, like waving his finger like you're naughty, don't meddle in the election. He said it again, don't meddle in the election. That's the guy. That guy. Don't forget, it was not like random Russians meddling. It was the Russian military at the direction of Donald Trump. And go read the Mueller report because it's right in there. The GRU unit. GRU unit is a unit of the Russian military. That's who attacked us. We were attacked by the Russian military, and there's Donald Trump. Imagine, that's like FDR joking around with the Japanese leader after Pearl Harbor. Don't you attack us again. Don't do that. Chuck Schumer slammed it, saying Putin's the only one laughing. That's nice. I'm glad Schumer did that. Then it got worse. Then Trump, with Putin there, and I'm not kidding. This is all real. He said, points at the media there, journalists, he goes, get rid of them. Fake news is a great term, isn't it? You don't have this problem in Russia, but we do. And he looks at Putin, and Putin responds in English, we also have it. It's the same. So they are laughing about the media, laughing. By the way, to remind everyone, according to the Committee to Protect Journalists, 26 journalists have been killed in the time of Vladimir Putin, many of them investigative journalists who have been investigating the Putin world. So there's Trump laughing it up about the election, laughing it up about reporters disappearing who dare to question him. Don't forget, just a few days ago, Donald Trump again tweeted about being president forever. This meme he keeps sharing on Twitter, president forever. And yesterday, to little fanfare because so much else was going on, he tweeted about calling for a provision of the Constitution to be suspended, literally, asked to delay the census. That's Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution. It has to be every 10 years. He literally asked to suspend a provision of the Constitution yesterday. And it got like no uproar. I mean, he didn't say Article 1, Section 2. He has no idea what's in the Constitution. But the census is mandated by our Constitution every 10 years. But he wanted to delay it because he doesn't like the Supreme Court decisions, which we'll talk about later with Raul Reyes about what's going on. So to recap, let's recap this week. Trump joked, I put that in air quotes, about being president forever. He joked about getting rid of journalists with Vladimir Putin, a man who's gotten rid of journalists. He joked about Putin not attacking our elections, and he called for suspending a provision of the Constitution. And that was just in the last 3 days, folks. Trump is how democracies die. Donald Trump is how democracies die because the GOP will not stand up to him at all. Donald Trump, he called for suspending a provision of the Constitution. There's no outrage on the right, is there? What would stop Donald Trump from some of our worst nightmares? The idea of, I want to try to suspend the election. And it's tough to do because it's 50 different elections, or try to suspend any provision of the Constitution, like the 22nd Amendment, which says the president can only serve 2 terms in a row. What would prevent that? Because his base won't. It's all upon us. So that's what's going on. So let's talk about the debate, the big issue, and I want to hear from you last night. First of all, Colbert did his show live after the debate. We got 2 quick clips that are funny. Then we'll get into some debate clips, and I really want to hear your reaction. I heard a lot of great reactions last night. Here's first Colbert on Kamala Harris. One of her answers. Clip number 1, please.
Kamala Harris started by biting the head off of this question.
Do you think that Democrats have a responsibility to explain how they will pay for every proposal they make along those lines?
Well, let me tell you something. I hear that question, but where was that question when the Republicans and Donald Trump passed a tax bill that benefits the top 1% and the biggest corporations in this country?
And where will the questions be when I break out the Louisville Slugger on Trump in the Oval of Pain? Because after I snap him over my knee like a stale breadstick, there will be no more questions. Next question.
So Colbert having some fun there. And then he had a joke here at Marianne Williamson's expense a little bit. And here, let's play clip number 2 and just enjoy it.
Finally, self-help guru Marianne Williamson had to turn to weigh in, and she had her own prescription for beating Trump.
I'll tell you one thing. It's really nice if we got all these plans, but if you think we're going to beat Donald Trump by just having all these plans, you got another thing coming. Because he didn't win by saying he had a plan. He won by simply saying, make America great again. We've got to get deeper than just these superficial fixes.
Yes, we need to go deeper than these superficial, carefully thought out political policies. Has anyone tried fixing America with crystals and bee pollen? Yoga?
Yoga, everyone. Yoga for all, not Medicare for all. And I just found it so funny. Marianne Williamson, and not that she's a player in this whole thing, but to slam policies and say Trump won on a slogan, make America great again, doesn't get it. I mean, he won on white supremacy. He won on anti-Muslim bigotry. He won on demeaning women. He won on playing to the worst vile instincts of a swath of this country. So to think that was an expression, no. Maybe that was shorthand for them. So let's talk about the debate. Clearly, if you watch the debate or any of the news coverage since the debate, Senator Kamala Harris was the big winner of the debate. That's objectively speaking. It does not, and Joe Biden had a rough night. And I wouldn't have predicted that. I really thought it would be different for him. The real question, folks, here's the real question. I'm going to put it out now at the top. We'll play some clips, but I want to hear from you. These debates come and go. How much will it really move the polls? Because the ratings just came out. Last night's debate, the highest rated Democratic primary debate ever. 18 million watched it live and about 9 million streamed it. So 27 million people. That's huge. Better than the night before. So it was a huge viewing audience. Will it change poll numbers? And that's the real question that we all have to ask ourselves. Or will it begin the process of changing poll numbers? Because often it's not overnight. And it's always, I keep talking about polls. It's about trends. Trends. Watch trends. Watch trends for candidates falling apart. Watch trends for candidates moving up. We saw Elizabeth Warren climb slowly and steadily. That's her trend. That's the way she's going. Will Biden begin to slide? Will Senator Harris go up? And the others. I want to play a few clips, though, before the big fight. I'm not going to call it a fight. An exchange, we'll call it, between Senator Harris and Joe Biden. Because there were other things in this debate that were good and substantive as well that get overlooked. What's going on? Here's first Senator Harris on the economy. I thought this was a fabulous answer. Here is clip number 3, please.
Part of the issue that is at play in America today, and we've all been traveling around the country, I certainly have, I'm meeting people who are working 2 and 3 jobs. You know, this president walks around talking about and flouting his great economy, right? My great economy, my great economy. You ask him, well, how are you measuring this greatness of this economy of yours? And he talks about the stock market. Well, that's fine if you own stocks. So many families in America do not. You ask them, how are you measuring the greatness of this economy of yours? And they point to the jobless numbers and the unemployment numbers. Well, yeah, people in America are working. They're working 2 and 3 jobs. So when we talk about jobs, let's be really clear. In our America, no one should have to work more than 1 job to have a roof over their head and food on the table.
Thank you very much.
And that was a great answer, Senator Harris. And then here was one of the lowlights, Eric Swalwell attacking Joe Biden on his age. And Joe Biden's response, I think, is one of his best responses of the night. In fact, Joe Biden's best response was probably talking about his son, who died ultimately, but getting health care. But here is earlier in the debate, Eric Swalwell talking about pass the torch, and Joe Biden gave, I thought, an excellent response. Here's clip number 5, please.
I was 6 years old when a presidential candidate came to the California Democratic Convention and said, it's time to pass the torch to a new generation of Americans. That candidate was then Senator Joe Biden. Joe Biden was right when he said it was time to pass the torch to a new generation of Americans 32 years ago. He's still right today. If we're going to solve the issues of automation, pass the torch. If we're going to solve the issues of climate chaos, pass the torch. If we're going to solve the issue of student loan debt, pass the torch. If we're going to end gun violence for families who are fearful of sending their kids to school, pass the torch.
Vice President, would you like to sing a torch song?
I would.
I'm still holding on to that torch. I want to make it clear to you, look, the fact of the matter is what we have to do is make sure that everybody is prepared better to go on to educate for an education. The fact is that's why I propose us focusing on schools that are in distress. That's why I think we should triple the amount of money we spend for Title I schools. That's why I think we should have universal pre-K. That's why I think every single person who graduates from high school, 65 out of 100 now, need something beyond high school. And we should provide for them to be able to get that education. That's why there should be free community college, cutting in half the cost of college. That's why we should be in a position where we do not have anyone have to pay back a student debt when they get out. They're making less than $25,000 a year.
And it goes on from there, but I thought Joe Biden did a great job responding to that. And by the way, the speech Eric Swalwell talked about Joe Biden, it was online. People showed clips of it. And he actually wasn't saying it's time to pass the torch. He was quoting John F. Kennedy's famous 1961 inaugural address where he said, the torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans. And then he wanted to quote MLK. And he wasn't going like, hey, let's get the old people out of here and just have younger people. That's what Swalwell was saying, which is ridiculous. And that's what I talk about on this show. When I talk about the fight of our generation is Donald Trump, it is not one based on age. And I believe that 100%. Ageism is ridiculous. It's painful and frustrating for people. The generation that's fighting Donald Trump has nothing to do with age. You could be 18 or 98. It's about our values. And are you going to stand up for the values of this country? That's the fight of this generation, not defined simplistically by your age, but how you see this country. And do you want to step up and fight for it and the values you believe in? That's the fight of this generation. So Swalwell is just terrible on that. Now, here's Bernie Sanders' quick clip slamming Trump. I thought this was really good as well. Clip number 6.
The American people understand that Trump is a phony, that Trump is a pathological liar and a racist, and that he lied to the American people during his campaign. He said he was going to stand up for working families. Well, President Trump, you're not standing up for working families when you try to throw 32 million people off the health care that they have, and that 83% of your tax benefits go to the top 1%. That's how we beat Trump. We expose him for the fraud that he is.
A nice job there by Bernie Sanders. And, the candidates, I try to look at what the good points were of the various candidates. We are vetting them. We're looking at them. A lot of people listening have made up their mind. A lot have not. So why not hear different things? Kirsten Gillibrand, I thought, did a great job on talking about her plan for essentially ending corruption, the legal corruption we have in our campaign finance system. She wants a publicly funded campaign system. Mayor Buttigieg did a good job. I have some clips I can play later from him talking about various issues. But let's get to the big issue, the discussion between Senator Harris and Vice President Biden on an issue about race, which is there were times candidates did not want to talk about race in the debate stage unless forced to. And I thought it was very interesting for Senator Harris to bring this up here. And it was a remarkable moment. I think it'll be one of these moments that we don't know right now, but it could, when we look back, as one of the pivotal moments of this entire campaign. Now, before I play the clip, just to remind everyone what's going up so we're all on the same speed here. About a little over a week and a half ago, Joe Biden talked about being able to work with people he hates and despises. The meanest guys they were 2 Democratic segregationists. So why he picked them, I get the point, but it did not play well. I get that. So she references that, Senator Harris. And on the busing thing, in case you don't know Joe Biden's record, let me just quickly give it to you so we're all, again, on the same page before I play it. In 1975, Joe Biden, as a U.S. Senator, young man, supported anti-busing measures so that black students were not bused to majority white students, and white students were not bused to majority black students. So in a sense, it was forced integration using the busing system. He fought it on the federal level. As he talked about, he wanted it more local control. And in 1976, he introduced a proposal to stop the Justice Department from using busing to desegregate schools and supported similar amendment in 1977. So he was very outspoken on opposing, in his view, forced busing, but using the federal government to integrate schools. And that's the backdrop. How are you feeling those issues from 1975 or even today? I think it's very interesting if you saw polling today. I wonder what the polling is today. Black and white. Like if you live in a neighborhood, do you want your kids to be bused or not? That's different. Joe Biden didn't go to that. His response was vastly different. So here is Senator Harris, the very first thing, touching on that Joe Biden a week and a half ago talked about by name 2 segregationists, James Eastland, a senator, and Herman Talmadge, and touch it beginning there and then going on. So here's clip number 7 first.
And I'm going to now direct this at Vice President Biden. I do not believe you are a racist. And I agree with you when you commit yourself to the importance of finding common ground. But I also believe, and it's personal, and I was actually it was hurtful to hear you talk about the reputations of 2 United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race in this country. And it was not only that, but you also worked with them to oppose busing. And, you know, there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools. And she was bused to school every day. And that little girl was me. So I will tell you that on this subject, it cannot be an intellectual debate among Democrats. We have to take it seriously.
So that was the great moment there, and I stopped there because Biden's about to respond. So it was very personal, talking about it was her. And if you watch the debate, it was interesting. Joe Biden, during Senator Harris's answer, looked straight ahead. But when she said, that little girl was me, he turned and looked right at her. That's how powerful that moment was. It was remarkable to watch live on television. Now here is Joe Biden's response right there, real time, clip number 8.
Mischaracterization of my position across the board. I did not praise racist. That is not true, number one. Number two, if we want to have this campaign litigated on who supports civil rights and whether I did or not, I'm happy to do that. I was a public defender. I didn't become a prosecutor. I came out and I left a good law firm to become a public defender when in fact my city was in flames because of the assassination of Dr. King. Number one. Now, number two, as the Vice President of the United States, I work with a man who, in fact, we worked very hard to see to it we dealt with these issues in a major, major way. The fact is that in terms of busing, you would have been able to go to school the same exact way because it was a local decision made by your city council. That's fine. That's one of the things I argued for, that we should be breaking down these lines. But so the bottom line here is, look, everything I've done in my career, I ran because of civil rights. I continue to think we have to make fundamental changes in civil rights. And those civil rights, by the way, include not just only African Americans, but the LGBT community.
So that was Joe Biden's response. Interesting, he made a subtle point there that you might see him or other Democrats make. He said, I was a public defender, you were a prosecutor. And the fact Senator Harris was a prosecutor, district attorney, then AG in California, which is slightly different than a prosecutor's AG, to be technical about it, that in a general election, I think that actually plays really well for people. In our base of our Democratic Party right now, that's been a little bit of a baggage for her. And I wonder how that's going to play, if others are going to bring that up or not. And that fact that I was a public defender, Joe Biden saying that. And we'll go through in a future show more about her details as AG and district attorney. She did some really good things and some things that I think that are problematic. And she'll answer for them. That's part of the campaign. That's how it works. So then here's Senator Harris pushing back to that response by Joe Biden. Clip number 9. I'm sorry, 9.
Do you agree today that you were wrong to oppose busing in America then?
No.
Do you agree?
I did not oppose busing in America. What I opposed is busing ordered by the Department of Education. That's what I opposed.
Well,
I
there
did
was
not
a
oppose
failure of states to integrate public schools in America. I was part of the second class to integrate Berkeley, California public schools almost 2 decades after Brown v. Board of Education.
Because your city council made that decision. It was a local decision.
So that's where the federal government must step in. That's why we have the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. That's why we need to pass the Equality Act. That's why we need to pass the ERA, because there are moments in history where states fail to preserve the civil rights of all people.
I have supported the ERA from the very beginning when I ran
President Biden, 30 seconds, because I want to bring other people into this.
I supported the ERA from the very beginning. I'm the guy that extended the Voting Rights Act for 25 years. We got to the place where we got 98 out of 98 votes in the United States Senate doing it. I've also argued very strongly that we, in fact, deal with the notion of denying people access to the ballot box. I agree that everybody, once they, in fact, they should. Anyway, my time's up.
Interesting that, my time is up has become almost a meme as well. Is your time up or not? And Joe Biden's argument there that it sounds on its face, it might sound interesting or even palatable. The idea, well, I just wanted local control. I just wanted states' rights. And as we all know, as students of history and politics, that's what segregationists have long said. That's what those who opposed marriage equality have said. I don't want the federal government getting involved. I want local decisions. I am not equating Joe Biden with those people. I am saying he's making the identical argument, and that's what makes it so problematic for Joe Biden. And he knows that. In fact, he knows it so much that he came out this afternoon and was with Jesse Jackson and made a statement at the convention in Chicago there. And I'll play 2 quick clips of that, and then we'll take a break and take calls. The rest of the time is just you. I've talked enough. But here's Joe Biden just a short time ago at an event in Chicago, Illinois with Reverend Jackson and the audience talking about, it starts with, you can't hear the very first word, but it's basically, I never opposed voluntary busing. So here's clip number 12.
Voluntary busing. And it was a program that Senator Harris participated in, and it made a difference in her life. I did support federal action to address root causes of segregation in our schools and our communities, including taking on the banks and redlining and trying to change the way in which neighborhoods were segregated. I've always been in favor of using federal authority to overcome state-initiated segregation. In fact, I cast a deciding vote in 1974 against an amendment called the Gurney Amendment, which would have banned the right of the federal courts to be able to use busing as a remedy. And you might guess, in the middle of the most extensive busing order in American history in my city, in my state, it wasn't what you'd call the most popular vote in the country at the time. So, Reverend Jackson, we spent a lot of time working together over the years on a lot of issues that matter. And I know, I fought my heart out to ensure that civil rights and voting rights, equal rights, are enforced everywhere. These rights are not up to the states to decide. They are federal government's duty to decide. It's a constitutional question to protect the civil rights of every single American. And that's always been my position.
So there he is. He actually pivoted or flip-flopped or whatever you want to call it, backtrack. Last night he talked about, I was defending states' rights. I was defending local control over an issue of civil rights and race equality. And then today he said, I never did that. And I just point these out. These are for people to judge. I am not endorsing any candidate at all. I'm trying to be as fair as possible. And we will criticize and praise candidates as things happen. The last thing is, here's a quick clip of Joe Biden today, really touching on what I think his greatest strength is, his work with Barack Obama. And when you hear this and the crowd react to this, you're like, there is the Joe Biden that if he stays on this path, I could see him winning the nomination. But the problem is for Joe Biden, he's going to be questioning a lot of other issues, going to have to answer. And his people are keeping him out of the media. And I sincerely, and I know this sounds naive, but it's not. His campaign's strategy now is to keep Joe Biden away from being questioned. And that's their strategy. But that's not good for the Democratic Party. That's not good for our country either, to be frank. We have to know if Joe Biden is up to the task in 2019, 2020. Not about his age. It's nothing. I don't care about his age at all. I'm talking about in terms of ability to respond as quickly as in today's world, things are lightning fast, using social media and the like. Also, having tough questions. How are you going to respond? I can assure you, Trump and the Republicans are going to come after him. And I would rather he goes to the media nonstop and proves himself in the next few weeks or a month, or flames out and he's gone. And then we look to the other candidates so that we pick the best, strongest candidate to go against Donald Trump. And it might turn out to be Joe Biden at the end of the day. It might be Bernie. It might be Senator Harris. It might be Liz Warren. It might be Buttigieg. It might be any of them. We don't know yet. But here's the last quick clip. Here's Joe Biden today, clip 13.
Our criminal justice reforms as president and vice president reduced the federal population by 38,000 people. Ladies and gentlemen, in the Obama-Biden administration, we commuted more sentences than the president did than the 13 previous presidents combined. We passed a support. By the way, with all due respect, I say to Chicagoans and everyone, my president gets much too little credit for all that he did. He was one of the great presidents of the United States of America. And I'm tired of hearing about what he didn't do. This man had a backbone like a ramrod.
If Joe Biden could stay on that message, he probably would win the nomination easily, to be objective and frank. I don't think he can stay on it because there's so much being questioned. So the question is now, does this change anyone's mind? I'm so intrigued. If anyone watched the debate last night and they changed their mind about a candidate, not that you love someone already and then they did what you wanted, did it change anyone's mind? And do you think in the polling we'll see in the next week, will it change anyone's mind at all? From everyone, like a national poll to those based on demographics. I mean, Joe Biden now polling among African Americans in the mid-40s. Senator Harris, less than 2 digits. She's at 9% nationally, last national poll about African Americans. Will that switch around? I'm curious. I don't know. So there's no wrong answer for that. But what do you think of the debate? Did it change anyone's mind change either way? And has it opened the race up more for you in your mind? 866-997-4748. Give me a call. You're my guest right to the top of the hour right here on the Dean Obeidallah Show.
The Dean Obeidallah Show.
Whoever's the next president, we should call them the 45th president of the United States. And this will go down as a dark time in America.